In the United States, Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke has warned the American economy has not yet fully recovered from the effects of the 2008 financial crisis, and regulators must continue to find new ways to strengthen the banking system.
The heavy human and economic costs of the crisis underscore the importance of taking all necessary steps to avoid a repeat of the events of the past few years.
The way I call it is passive diversification. These countries, Russia, China included, their central banks don't actively want to sell the dollar because it's not in their best interest to do so. But what we've seen is what I call passive diversification. When they get more money, they're putting less and less of it into the dollar. So there is a sort of underlying shift away from the dollar, but it doesn't imply that they're selling the dollar aggressively just yet. But the best way to think of it is a ticking time bomb. At some stage the dollar will fall sharply, at some stage the dollar will fall sharply, at some stage the dollar will fall sharply, partly because of what
the speculation and the complexity of currency has caused some of the irritation, not only among the trading nations, but among individuals. But it's not for me to say how it will happen, but I think everyone who knows how to deal with these situations is very cognizant of the problem it takes to get over it, and I think the RMB will become more convertible. But when it'll come, that is a matter for, obviously, the powers that...
Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced.
The BIS, IMF, and World Bank control the money supply for the world.
All got to move towards that opportunity, and I think the challenge also is whether we should move towards an international currency, because the speculation and the complexity of currency has caused some of the irritation, not only among the trading nations, but among individuals.
Will you tell the American people to whom you lent $2.2 trillion of their dollars? Will you tell us who got that money and what the terms are of those agreements?
We explain each of our programs. In terms of the terms, we explain the terms exactly. We explain what the collateral requirements are. We explain what...
To whom did you explain that?
It's on our website.
Yeah, okay.
So all that information is available in our commercial paper program.
And who got the money?
Hundreds and hundreds of banks. Any bank that has access to the U.S. Federal Reserve's discount...
Can you tell us who they are?
No, because the reason that is counterproductive and will...
There's a table on page 26 which consists of your balance sheet, and one of the entries on the balance sheet is under assets central bank liquidity swaps, which shows an increase from the end of 2007 from $24 billion to $553 billion and change at the end of 2008. What's that?
Those are swaps that were done with foreign central banks. Many foreign banks are short dollars, and so they come into our markets looking for dollars and drive up interest rates and create volatility in our markets. What we have done is, with a number of major central banks, like the European Central Bank, for example, we swap our currency, dollars, for their currency, euros. They take the dollars, lend it out to the banks in their jurisdiction. That helps bring down interest rates in the global market for dollars. And meanwhile, we're not lending to those banks, we're lending to the central bank. The central bank is responsible for repaying us.
So who got the money?
To financial institutions in Europe and other countries.
Which ones?
I don't know.
$500 billion and you don't know who got the money?
This isn't technically a currency intervention, but is the use of foreign exchange to make loans, to hide them. You know, Greece hid its loans in part by deals with Goldman Sachs using currency swaps. It's well known they can hide transactions, and that's what the Fed is doing. And when you're doing something you're trying to hide, you probably shouldn't be doing.
All right, so who actually made that decision to hand out $1 trillion that way, $500 billion? Who made that decision?
The Federal Open Market Committee.
Okay, and was it done at one time or in a series of meetings?
A series of meetings.
And under what legal authority?
We have a long-standing legal authority to do swaps with other central banks.
Do you
It's not an emergency authority of any kind.
Anything specific about it?
Do you know the... My counsel says Section 14 of the Federal Reserve.
If you watch the chart, this is 1929. There was a stock market crash. This is how much money is in circulation. See the flat line, 1941, 1965, Vietnam, then 2000, Y2K. Then a little spike, then 2001, that was 9/11. There's 2008. This is October. Look at this. This is how much money has been flooded in. This is exactly what happened with Weimar.
A group like the FMOC to hand out $500 billion to foreigners without any action by this Congress?
Congress approved it in the Federal Reserve Act.
When was that?
Quite a long time ago. I don't know the exact date.
100 years ago?
The original act is 1914, I believe.
I don't know whether this provision was in 1914 or not, but the Federal Reserve Act was in 1913.
All right, and at that time, the entire gross national product of this country was well under $500 billion, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Is it safe to say that nobody in 1913 contemplated that your small little group of people would decide to hand out $500 billion to foreigners? Conducted any investigation or auditing of the losses that the Federal Reserve has experienced on its lending since last September?
We're still in the process of conducting that review. Until we actually, go out and gather the information, I'm not in a position to really respond to the specific question.
So are you telling me that nobody at the Federal Reserve is keeping track on a regular basis of the losses that it incurs on what is now a $2 trillion portfolio?
I don't know if you're telling me that you're mentioning that there's losses. I'm just saying that we're not, until we actually look at the program and have the information, we are not in a position to say whether there are losses or to respond in any other way to that particular.
Mr. Chairman, my time is up, but I have to tell you honestly, I am shocked to find out that nobody at the Federal Reserve, including the Inspector General, is keeping track of it.
We're basically beholden to what the central bankers and policymakers do rather than to the fundamentals in the economy, because we have not been able to generate real growth without doing one of two things. That is debasing the currency or borrowing our way to a false prosperity.
That's why your pension fund was wiped out. That's why the interest rate on your savings to this day remains around zero. If you're a retiree, you know what I'm talking about. It's also why you're now drowning in a mortgage on a house that's worth far less than you owe, because the bankers were happy to lend you money they did not have to drive up the price of that house, because they knew the more loans the better, but no downside for them. So what's next? Higher taxes for us, higher interest rates.
Wow, we just made a lot of money.
The Fed expanding its balance sheet by over $1 trillion since last September.
We have not yet reached any conclusions.
Do you know who received that money?
We're in the process right now of doing our review, and
Right, but you're the Inspector General. My question to you specifically is, do you know who received that $1 trillion plus that the Fed extended and put on its balance sheet since last September? Do you know the identity of the recipients?
I do not know. We have not looked at that specific.
Well, Sam, this is exactly,
our interest expenses are going to go through the roof.
I hate to be a little historian nerd, but that's exactly why it happened the way it happened in Weimar. Because Germany, they had the debt, they couldn't pay it, and so what did they do? They took their money like this, $1 bill, and just marked it as where is the camera? As they marked it as 1,000. Then, when that wasn't enough, a $1 became a 10,000. Then it became 100,000. Then it became $1 million. Your money will be worthless if we don't stop the spending and the printing.
Attention, citizens! Due to the financial irresponsibility and incompetence of your leaders, Cobra has found it necessary to restructure your nation's economy. Restructure your nation's economy. We have begun by eliminating the worthless green paper. The worthless green paper, which your government has deceived you into believing is valuable.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means.
And I personally, I'm telling you, I'm invested in government bonds. And I'm very pessimistic for the moment until we see what's going to happen next year. But I think that it's an
opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that can...
Department of Homeland Security reports Facebook has replaced almost every other CIA information gathering program since it was launched in 2004.
After years of secretly monitoring the public, we were astounded so many people would willingly publicize where they lived, their religious and political views, an alphabetized list of all their friends, personal email addresses, phone numbers, hundreds of photos of themselves, and even status updates about what they were doing moment to moment. It is truly a dream come true for the CIA.
Much of the credit belongs to CIA agent Mark Zuckerberg, who...
For bankruptcy protection under Chapter 11. Stock market safety meeting. Fifth straight week. Unprecedented deficit is clearly, we all need to tighten our belts.
Rights breaking our civil liberties. Our civil liberties are being trampled. Housing market continues its sharp decline.
Rates of rampant inflation in double digits. Affecting global markets. Emergence and summit to deal with supply chain.
Hereby declare a state of emergency. Today, post-Marshall.
I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.